Hi there, welcome to Create with Copper. Today we're making this Wirework drop pendant. And if you want to see more techniques and tutorials like this one, hit that subscribe button. And if the design looks familiar, yes, this does match and build on the Wirework earrings I did a few weeks ago. So let's get wrapping. For this project, I'm using 0.9mm diameter or 19 gauge copper wire for the base wires, and I'm using this as it's the largest gauge that will fit through the beads. For the weaving, I'm using 0.4mm diameter copper wire, which is 26 gauge, and 3 beads. These are 2 4mm diameter copper beads and 1 6mm diameter labradorite. And the tools needed are wire cutters, ring mandrel, bail making pliers or round nose pliers, a rawhide mallet and block, and then if you're closing your own jump rings, a jeweller's torch and soldering equipment, and sanding and polishing tools. We're going to start by shaping the outer base wire. So I've cut 11 centimetres of the 0.9mm wire, and I'm going to shape the centre of that wire around size Y on my ring mandrel. Now this is going to make a larger drop than my original earrings, which used 9.5 centimetres of wire and went round size S on the ring mandrel. Now I think those sides are just a little bit straight, so I'm going to just curve them slightly. And you can keep adjusting this shape until you're happy with it. And then I'm going to hammer the curve of that wire with my rawhide mallet. This will help to harden the wire without flattening its shape. I'll thread on the beads. And make a loop on each of the ends. Now these loops are going to be the bail, so I'm going to make them quite large and bend them towards the back. I'll then just centre them a little bit. And angle them so they're parallel. I can then just check that I'm happy with the shape and adjust it if necessary. And I'll use my rawhide mallet again just to work hard on those sides. This isn't absolutely necessary, but it helps stop the frame getting out of shape when you start weaving. Now I need to create the closed loop for the centre. And I've got some jump rings here that I made earlier. They're about 14mm in diameter and the same size that I used for the earrings. I flush cut both ends as I was making them, so I now just need to make sure that the two ends meet as closely as possible. Then I'm ready to solder them. So I'm going to do a few here at the same time, and I've cut the smallest pieces of solder I can. I also need some flux, so I've got a borax cone here, and I'll just grind some of that into the water in the dish. I'll then pop my pieces of solder into the flux to make sure they're well coated, and paint the flux on the joints of each of the jump rings. And I'll heat that with a torch until the flux goes glassy. This will just help stop the solder from jumping about. And I'll pop one of the pieces of solder on the inside of each joint. And I'll just heat each jump ring with a torch. And the idea is to heat the metal, and that in turn will heat the solder and melt it. And once the solder reaches temperature, it should flow into the joint. And if the solder does ping about, just pop it back in place with the solder pick. I'll then just quench these in some water to cool them down. And I'll use some pickle just to clean them up. Now you might find you've got some excess solder around the joint, and it might be creating a bit of a lump on the ring. So I just use one of these grinding stones to take away the excess. And you just need to keep going over the joint area until you're happy that it's smooth enough. It will be wrapped in wire, so that'll hide it a little bit, but I just don't want any large lumps in the frame. And that's the frame pieces complete and ready for the weaving. I'm going to start my weaving from the top, and I need to weave down to where the top of the jump ring will sit. So just to stop me getting carried away, I'm going to mark that with my permanent pen. You could just keep checking as you go. And then I'm going to take a length of my 0.4mm wire. Because this is a bit larger than the earrings, I'll probably use a little bit more weaving wire. I think I'll be using around about 1.2 metres. And I'm just going to wrap it twice around one side at the top. So I'll just take that wire down through the middle and over to the other side, and then wrap twice around that side. And it might be useful to put those loops back onto the baling pliers just to make sure that they stay together. Then I'll go back over to the first side of the frame and wrap twice around that again. And I'm just going to continue like this, wrapping twice on each side until I get down to that pen mark. Now this is where I want to start weaving in my jump ring, and I'm actually going to do this in a slightly different way than I did the earrings. So the first thing I'm going to do is tack the hoop onto the frame on the opposite side to the one I'm going to be weaving. This just helps to hold it into place and stop it moving over to one side as I weave. Now you can make this tack as basic or as involved as you like. But if you weave it on in the same way as you'll weave the other side, that helps to keep the right spacing. Just remember that you will be undoing this tacking later on. So once you're happy with your tacking, you can start the weave properly on the other side. I've already got my 2 wraps on the outside frame, so I'm going to take the wire through between the frame and the hoop. And then I'll wrap twice around the hoop. And I'm basically using the same weave as I did at the top, but using the hoop. While the hoop and the frame are close together, I'm just going to continue with 2 wraps on each side. Now I want to weave down to where the beads will sit at the bottom. So to keep them about central, the weave on the outer wire will be up to there. And that will mean on the inner wire, the weave will need to end about there. Now as you can see, the length on the outer wire is longer than on the inner wire. So to accommodate for that, I need to increase the number of wraps on the outside wire. And I'm going to do this in steps, just increasing the number of wraps on the outside wire by 1 each time. So to start with, I'm going to wrap 3 times on the outside wire, and then move across and wrap twice on the inside hoop. And then I'll take the wire through and across again, and this time wrap 4 times on the outside wire. And I'll just continue like this to fill the space. The increases you make will depend on the shape of the wire that you've got, so this is just a guide. But I have increased by 1 each time, up to 8 wraps on the outside wire. And then that final little bit of wrapping on the outside wire is just the number of wraps to fit to where the beads will sit. And then to get across to the other side of the beads, I'll take that weaving wire up onto the hoop and then just wrap a coil on that hoop across the top of the beads. And you just need to judge by eye how many wraps that will take. I just check by taking that weaving wire over to the other side of the beads and seeing if it looks symmetrical. And I'm quite happy with that. So I'm now going to start weaving back up the other side, and I'm just going to mirror the weaving that I did downwards. So I'll take 2 wraps on the inside hoop and gradually reduce the wraps on the outside frame by 1 each time. The main thing to watch here is that your weaving wire doesn't slip forwards, so you just need to keep pushing those wraps together and holding them in place as you weave. I would say this is the tricky bit of the weaving, so just take your time with it. As you weave upwards, you'll find that tacking starts to get in the way, so you can just remove that at this point. And just continue weaving the pattern in reverse. So once you get to 2 wraps on the outside wire, you're just doing 2 wraps on that and the hoop each time. Until you meet the weaving from the top. And if you've done the same number of weaves each side, that should all be symmetrical. Now the top of the hoop is the only bare bit left, so I'm just going to take the weaving wire over and wrap over the rest of the hoop. And then I just need to trim both ends of the wire. And that's my pendant finished. And in case you're wondering, this is its size in comparison with the earring. If you want to check out the earring video, I've put a link in a card and down in the description below. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If so, please press the like button below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel and head over to my website for more hints, tips and projects. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.